Let's do this. Okay, so excited to have everyone here to kick off our very first DevLabs. So jump into the chat, throw your intros. We will record this session, but I'm joined here by the full growth team, actually, Nico and Daniel. So really excited to show off our chat extension and walk through how we're going to build one for JetBlue, seat selection picker for JetBlue. So really, really hyped today to kick off this session. So for the agenda today, we're going to do a quick intro so you get to know us, do a bit of understanding of why DevLabs, what the series is, what to expect moving forward, dive into how Voiceflow is really great for developers, as well as an introduction to our extensions, and then we're actually going to go right into the build framework, as well as going through a live build with Nico. So again, as we go through this, throw any questions you have in the chat because we're going to be leaving the last 10 minutes for a live Q&A session. So yeah, keep that active. All right, shall we do some intros? I'll pass it over to Nico, who's leading this demo. Do you want to share a bit about who you are with the audience?
Sure. So I'm Nico, working as a product advocate with the growth team as well as the innovation team. And my job is pretty much trying everything that will be useful for you guys and how to implement that in the tool.
Yeah, my name is Daniel, so I'm the head of growth. So with the growth team, I get to work with Kim and Nico. But that's everything from the content, community, probably see my face a lot on the YouTube videos. But we're really just trying to make Voiceflow easier for everyone to use, help you get to your kind of AI agent in production a lot faster, and then figure out what are the areas that we can keep building to help you build more powerful agents, and work with the product team on actually putting those through.
Cool. And I'm Kim. I do a lot of work in the community in the Discord. You probably see me sending a bunch of messages in there, but I'm also on the growth team, helping out set up a lot of our community programs and also help do things like these awesome events. So yeah, cool. Before we kind of dive into the workshop, I wanted to do a bit of kickoff with our new series, DevLabs. But to do this, we'll need to back up a bit and understand what Voiceflow is as a platform and what we're really best at. At a high level, if you're looking to build and scale a complex AI agent with your team, Voiceflow is the fastest way to do that. There's really 4 components of Voiceflow. So we have a vector DB, which you can quickly use with their built-in prompt manager. We have a collaborative workflow builder to create complex flows with your team that leverage logic, and creating JavaScript steps as well. You can also use our JavaScript function to send, receive, and manipulate data with other tools in your tech stack, and also a suite of APIs that you can use to connect your agent to any custom interface. And even today, using our web chat to build chat widgets. So all that's to say is that Voiceflow is really, really powerful if you are working with a developer. And the numbers show. Just in July itself, we had over 13,000 active developers that have indicated that they have a developer resource in onboarding. And a part of that is we really just wanted to figure out what's a series that we can create to teach you all the advanced tips and tricks to level up your AI agent. Build one unlike anyone's ever seen before. So a part of this series that we're going to be running monthly will go through things like customization and logic, integrations with systems and softwares, as well as how to build custom front ends, specifically today's focus, chat extension. So you might have been seeing double. We currently do have a joint series with Making Bots that's led by Pete. But essentially what we'll be building in the DevLabs will also be used in Making Bots. So just to get a better sense, in DevLabs, we'll be focusing on building the custom interface and chat widget for the seat selection, as well as using our developer APIs to connect our data sources. And then for Making Bots, Pete will be going through more so of the workflow builder, how to use our knowledge base, and as well as how to do intent classification. So this is just to understand how the 2 series work together, and also how you potentially, with a developer as well as an AI builder on your teams, can collaborate. Great. So Daniel, I'm going to pass it over to you to share more about our web chat.
Yeah. So hey, everyone. If you've played around with web chat, you know that there's a bunch of different levels of customization that you can do. So in the tool itself, in Voiceflow, there's some really basic customizations that let you change the kind of color and the profile image. But the real power starts to begin once you get out of that kind of widget customizer and into the actual documentation. And so there's 3 areas that we've enabled you to be able to fully kind of customize your web chat that when used together start to make it incredibly powerful. So the first one is custom CSS and the ability to embed your widget. So rather than having the widget be in your bottom corner, you can actually embed it within a page, and not just just randomly within a page like an iframe, but you can actually attach it to a specific element. So it'll adapt to the size of the page that you want. And then on top of that, you also have the ability to fully customize the CSS. So if you have your own CSS file, you can actually point to it within the widget. And so I'll drop the documentation in the chat, but you are able to fully customize the CSS of your widget. So that's everything from like text spacing to fonts to there's some examples about changing like the language on buttons. So it really gives you the experience to make this something that is your own. I've seen like rounded corners, all sorts of stuff that people have done to really make the widget something that seems very native to the website that it's on. And so that's part one. Part two, what we're going to talk about today is extensions. And so extensions is incredibly powerful. It basically allows you to run custom code and either render that inside of your widget, as Nico's going to do today with a seat picker, or actually trigger custom code to happen on the website side. So this is things like opening up payment modals, deep linking into your website, and really being able to interact with it in a way that is makes it feel like a native part of your website or a native part of your application. The final one is triggers and modifications. And so again, I'll pass the docs on this, and we might use these in other sessions, but you are able to trigger the web chat to open, close at certain points, like when a user is on the page more than 30 seconds, or when they click on a certain object within the page. And you can also do things like trigger a specific flow within your canvas to start. So if you've got a workflow around pricing, for example, and someone's on the pricing page for more than 10 seconds, you can actually trigger the web chat to open and then start off at the pricing point. So when you start combining the three of these things, you're able to really take your web chat from something that is out of the box to something that's fully customized and actually feels like a native part of your application or your website. And so today we're going to focus on that middle one, which is extensions. It's the most powerful feature that we have, but it's very hidden. And so we haven't really talked about it a lot. We're going to be doing and making this much more open. So we're going to be adding them to the marketplace so you can see different examples of extensions. But Nico's going to walk you through how extensions work and actually show you how we built one for an upcoming Making Bots, or we're building something for JetBlue Airlines. And so there's two types of extensions, and I'll cover this at a very high level, but then Nico's going to go in and actually explain this in much more detail. There's response extensions, which allow you to render something inside of the widget. So you can render things like forms, calendars, payment modals. But you can even go a step further and start doing things like authentication, actually having someone log in or authenticate with a third-party software. Payment modals, so having something like a Stripe gateway where someone's actually able to enter their credit card information and have that go directly through Stripe. Something like PII, where you need to collect information from someone, but you don't want that to run through Voiceflow. You need to have it go through a secure server. And so these are all different areas where you can start to render a custom item or a custom widget or a custom step inside of Voiceflow that makes it feel like it's a native experience. The other one is effects. So effects let you actually trigger a piece of code on your website or in your app. And so this is great for things like in this image, we use it to kind of trigger confetti, but you can do things like deep link, like open up links, open up modals, really have the chat bot or the chat widget actually interact with things on your website based on what a user is doing. So those are the two general types of extensions, but I'm going to toss over to Nico, who's going to go way more in depth and kind of break down each of these and the steps that you can actually use to build your own.
To start with this, we can start with a demo of the kind of action you can do or effect and response you can generate with the extension. Let me just share my screen. The first thing I want to share is on top of the documentation, we also have a repository, and in this repository, everything we are going to talk about today, so the different extensions we will showcase in that demo, as well as the JetBlue extension, are already available. So you can already download and check the code here. But let's start with just a simple demo. So I'm locally running this. I have some code for my chat widget. And we will go over this more in a more technical aspect. So here is my chat widget loaded with a bunch of extensions. So all those extensions are available or triggered from my Voiceflow agent. As you can see, we can play a video, for example. So this is a pretty simple one. But if you go deeper in that example, not only we are playing the video, but we also trigger an action at the end of this video as well. Some of the most requested one is the file upload, for example. So you can choose, let's upload that Voiceflow logo, and pretty easily you can then allow the user to upload a document, then, or in that case, an image, and then you can do you can use Vision on this, for example. The file upload also works for the KB upload, for example. That's also something you might want your agent to be able to do. So if a user wants to share, I don't know, an invoice or a PDF that you want to upload to your KB, this is what we are just doing here. Thanks to the KB upload API we are sharing with you. And this is a bunch of those extension or those action you can do. You can even, as Daniel was talking about, you can even interact with the chat widget itself. In that case, if I want to disable the input, so which is right there, I can click here and you can see the user is not able, they're not able to type anything unless I choose to enable that input again or back, put it back. This is more an action on the chat widget instead of doing something on your backend or making some call, but that's also something I wanted to share, so you have that in mind. Another one is the confetti one, which, as you can see here, just trigger an effect that is on your web page. So multiple layers of interaction, but yeah, a quick introduction to show you how powerful this can be. So the chat widget, here's a simple diagram how you can use this. So for those of you who don't know, never used Voiceflow yet, when you choose to publish your agent using chat widget, we share with you a snippet code, and this is what you can see on the website box here. And the chat widget will interact with our dialog management API. And this is basically the dialog management API is the link between your agent and, in that case, the chat widget. The chat widget, sorry, is simply a user interface to interact with your agent. So that's the most simple version you can have, and this is what it looks like in terms of code. So this is the snippet code you get whenever you choose to publish your agent as chat widget. The two important things here are the project ID and the version ID you want to use. You can use a development version or a production version. Of course, Daniel talked about this, but in our documentation, you can also see or you can read about different settings you can also add in that code already to make advanced settings or advanced configuration for the chat widget. You can auto open it, for example, stuff like that. The next one is when you choose to use an extension. So here you can see the main difference is on the website, not only you have the snippet code, but you also have that extension. So this is the second GS icon here on the left, but everything else is the same. So we are still interacting with the Dialog Manager API to make that link possible between the chat widget UI and your Voiceflow agent. Again, another information here is Voiceflow, you can see Voiceflow agent plus custom action. Custom action, and we will talk about that. Custom action are the way to send something to that extension. So again, like we have the dialog management API to make the link between your agent and the chat widget, we have the custom action that will make the link with the agent and the extension, if that makes sense. So for this this use case, here the main difference, so we still have that snippet code, but we've added some code to import whatever extension you want to use. In that case, we are fetching an extension file from a Git repository. So this is one of our repo. And you can see that we choose to import the file upload extension, the KB upload extension, as well as the date extension. So even if my file contains multiple extensions, I can pick and choose the one I want to load and the one I want to use in my chat widget. And this is what you can see in the assistant property, where we have an array of extension with the exact same name. So here, not only I'm loading those, importing those models, but I'm also telling the chat widget which one I want to use. The next is about the different way of importing those extensions. So one way of doing it, like on our previous code, I choose to basically import one file. Obviously, I can import multiple files, but I can also import one file with multiple extension or multiple code within that, that same file. So it's really up to you, depending on how you want to proceed, how you want to maintain those different extensions, or you know that you want to use one main file that will contain all the different model and extensions that you want to be able your chat widget to use, or you are more on, okay, let's focus on that very specific extension I want to use, and then I will ask a dev to make another specific extension, and then I will add after that to my chat widget. Then you will end up with two extensions or two files to load in your chat widget. But yeah, just a simple diagram to show you that both are doable. So let's see the next one. I've talked about the way to interact with those extensions, and this is the custom action. So the custom action is available from the sidebar in the dev section. It looks like this, and like most of our different steps, we also have a settings. And this settings, in that case, allow us to not only choose to stop on action, and I will talk about that a bit later, but also to pass some information, which is important because we have effect, we have response. An effect will maybe not need any data to be passed. So I want to trigger the confites that we've seen. I don't really need to pass anything to my extension. So my custom action will just basically trigger that confetti effect. But for some other extension, like in the seed selector that we will see after, I need to pass some information, like the number of seats that have been to be selected, that need to be selected, sorry, or even some reserved seats. So whenever I show a map, I can remove the seat that have been already reserved. And this is how you do this with the body of the custom action. The stop on action is also something you want to use to choose if you want to stop the flow. So your agent will wait for the extension to respond. So that's a good example for that is a payment check. So this for a Stripe extension, for example, you want to be sure that the payment succeed. What you want to do here is a stop on action, wait for this payment to, or check if that payment is successful. And if that's the case, then you will send something back, an information back to your agent, and we'll see how we can collect and handle that a bit later. But this is why it's so important to tell whenever you want to wait for something or not. So this is the stop on action. What it will look like in our other demo, so the seed selector demo, it's pretty much like this. So in your flow, you will have something before your custom action, and then your custom action, and depending if this is more like an effect or you need a response, then in that example, for example, you have like two different paths. So we have the cancel and the complete. And the stop in action here makes sense because before going to the user cancel step or the LLM confirmation step, we want to be sure that something happened on the chat widget. So we stop on action. If the user chooses to select the seat and confirm, we will hit the complete pass. If the user chooses to cancel that, we will hit the user canceled. And so again, this is just a simple way for you to visualize how you can set up that in your Voiceflow agent. So the payload, again, just a quick zoom on that payload. This is JSON. That can be text as well, but most of the time you will want to use JSON because it's maybe easier to deal with and parse in your extension code. But you can pass whatever you want. Here, in that case, I'm passing a number of seats that has to be selected before the user will be able to confirm that selection. About the custom action, what it means in terms of the trace. So remember, we talked about having a link between the chat widget and the agent using the dialog management API. Well, this API will return traces. So if when the agent is running, we hit the custom action, this is what the custom action trace will look like. So meaning that in your extension code, what you will have to do is just say, okay, do I got in my different traces, can I find an extension with the name X seat selector v2? And if that's the case, then your extension code will run and you will do whatever logic you want here. And you can see as well as the payload is present in the trace. So remember, the payload is the body that you are using in the, or you are setting in the custom action payload. And you can see also the path. So here we have two different paths, canceled or complete. And this is also important to have because you can dynamically get those names to then trigger or send back an information, and we will see that on the next slide. This is basically the information coming from your agent using the DM API and the different traces. But now I want to talk about the different type of the for the extension. So again, you have the effect, which is the very basic, the more simple kind of extension, which just basically triggers something, but you don't have to wait anything. So your flow will keep going. You just do something like confettis. I click on the confettis, or I choose whenever the user reach a specific flow in my agent, I choose to just show those confettis, but I don't have to wait for anything. So I will keep going, even keep interacting with the user. And that's an effect. And as you can see on that diagram, this is just a custom action being triggered, generating that trace that will be spotted in my extension code while we are keep going or keep running over the next steps in my agent flow. This is what the code for your extension will look like. Again, you will have the type effect. This is pretty much what you need to know here. We will see the code again a bit later, but this is what we've got from our documentation. So do not hesitate to give it a read and see all the different code you can use for that. But again, here it's more to explain what type you need to set regarding the effect the effect to try to do here. So let me switch to the next one. This is again another diagram to, I know this is a bunch of diagram, but I want to be sure you guys understand how everything works. And I done my best to make that simple. It is. After all, when you have that, all those information, you will understand that it's pretty simple. We just need to think or to have that information. So custom actions, extension, and in between, you have that dialog management API. So we have a name. Again, remember, this is the custom action name, and this is how we spot that in our extension code. So this is why, again, basically what you have in blue here is the custom action on the left. What you have in a sort of purple here, it is what we are sending to the extension. And the opposite is here. The extension is in purple, and everything we're sending back to the custom action or basically to the agent are in blue. Name, important, because this is how we trigger that into the extension. Stop on action, same. It's important because this is this will tell us how, or tell the extension if we have to wait or not. In that case, this is an effect. Remember, think about the configs. We don't have to wait for anything. We just run that config effect, and that's it. And a default path. In that case, again, because we don't wait for anything, we don't even need a path, to be honest. That's why we have the default path. By default, we will use that path. We don't have to pass a specific path. Yeah, yeah, that one was hard. Okay, let's go to the other one, extension type for response. So again, this diagram is a bit different in a way that now you can see that the first part on the left is we have something, we have a specific action, mainly triggered by or the agent or the user itself interacting with the agent. We are sending not only a custom action, but also like a payload in that custom action. So that was the body, the JSON. And we also choose to stop on action. So in that case, we are triggering something in our extension, and we will wait for a response. And that's why we have used dedicated extension, seed selector. So based on the custom action name, we know that we want to trigger the seed selector extension in the chat widget. And we know that we want to return information. So we will return the selected seed to our agent. And in our agent, as you can see on that right blue box, we will handle the extension response. And again, we will see everything, all this in the demo. This is how it looks like in terms of code in your extension. So the type, in that case, it will not be effect, that will be response. But as you can see, pretty much everything else is similar. So I will not spend too much time on this. Again, it's documented. So yeah. The diagram, again, this one is a bit more complex, but it's detailed in a way that you guys better understand how this will work. We still have the custom action still on blue. We still have the extension purple, and what we send to that extension. So same thing as for the effect, the name. Always the name is because that's the ID. This is important for us because this is how we will tell the extension what, or the chat widget, what extension we want to use. The data to send to the extension. So that's the payload, number of seats, reserved seats, for example. So that's the data from the custom extension. If I'm looking at the right side here for the extension. Stop on action. That's also something I'm sending to my extension. And in that case, I want the extension or the runtime to stop on action. And I do have a bunch of different paths. But as you can see, the custom action, those paths are triggered from the extension. On the right side, you can see that we have path 1, 2, and X. And those paths will be triggered by your extension code. And that's why in that case, those arrow goes from right to left. This is coming from the extension, which makes sense because you want your extension to make the choice and like let the agent know what was that choice and keep going based on this. The last thing I haven't talked about yet is the data collected and the last event variable. Whenever you choose to pass a payload or some data as a response in your extension using the interact, again, we will talk about that right after. You want to use the last event variable in your agent because this is what will contain the payload. You can think of this like pretty much like the last utterance. Whenever you interact with the Dialog Manager API, this is auto-populated with the last user utterance. In that case, that will be populated with the last event. And if you choose within your extension to trigger that event, then it will be populated with the event name as well as the payload, which is, again, in that case, very useful because we want to know what seat have been selected. All right, let's keep going here. The dialog management API. So when I was talking about the interaction, this is it. This is what I was talking about. In the chat widget or in the chat, in the chat widget, you have access to an API, which is the chat.interact. And this is what you will do, or what a call to the dialog management API will do. But this is pre-built in the chat widget. So at any time or in your extension, if you choose to use it using the chat interact, here you can see that I'm sending a type, which is complete. Complete is one of the paths that was available in my custom action trace. So if I choose to trigger or use the interact with a type complete and a payload, which will be my JSON, for example, this will trigger not only an exit from my custom action through the complete path, but also populates the last event with the payload. So this is what we have here on the line handling last event in the Voiceflow agent. Here in JavaScript step, for example, you can populate the selected seats variable. So let's say this is a global variable, a variable you've created in your Voiceflow agent, equal last event payload. So it's not visible here, but this is a last underscore event dot payload plus whatever property you want to get from this. So in that case, that will be the selected seat. That's it. Knowing all this, what we will build here, or what I will show here is, okay, the main project, and this is something that Pete will showcase in the upcoming event, where in that agent, we want the user to be able to select some seats for the flight. And I will focus on that very specific part. Again, we will see everything else. You will be able to see everything else with Pete. But what we want to keep in mind is we want to be able to limit the user selection to a specific number of seats. We also want to be able to pass some information. So for example, here, as you can see on the capture screen here, we have some pre-reserved seats. We want to be able to send that from our agent by, let's say, fetching that information from an API before hitting that custom action. And ultimately, of course, capturing the user selection. So this is, again, this is, you can think of this as a zooming from one specific part of that larger project, larger agent, where the user will be able to select some seats. Maybe the best best way to showcase that is to show you the demo first, and then we will dive in. So let's kill this one, and yeah. So same thing as previously, this code is available on our main repo. And I will just run this locally to show you what it will look like. So whenever I will hit that custom action, here basically I'm using a button here to show you the first version. You know what? Let's see it. So that was the first version we went with for a seat selection. So pretty basic, but it works. You can select different seats and confirm the selection. Those seats were randomly selected. And obviously, we want that to be not random, but based on real data. So we will see that in the V2. So if I confirm the seat selection, I will get an LLM generated response based on whatever the seat I choose to select, which is correct here. Let's start that again. And in that, this time, let's select the V2. OK, so it's mainly the main difference is the styling and some difference between the category. So we have premium, or those one are eco premium, eco and business. So the price is different. So the first example wasn't supporting any pricing information and stuff like that. Here, what we have is if I select this one, which is a premium, and this one is not available, but this one, for example, I will have two different prices. I can cancel, I can confirm the seat selection. So if I do this, same thing here, we just have a confirmation with the seat label, but this time we also have a type, a price, even a total. And I can also choose to cancel that, which was not the case with the V1. But if the user chooses to cancel, we should be able to also flag that in our flow, which is the case here, user canceled. So let's look at the agent in Voiceflow. The first thing we are doing here is setting a bunch of variables. The seat of number, so the number of seats the user will have to select. Again, this can come from an API call, a database, whatever, or even during a conversation, you extract that information using an AI set step, for example. We have a simple prompt to generate that first prompt, and then we hit that custom action. The custom action has a name, always, remember. This is how we will trigger the corresponding extension, but also a body. And in that case, we have the number of seats with the value of that variable, which will has been set to 2 in the beginning right there. We have two paths, cancel and complete. This is how we were able to handle whenever I select 2 seats or whenever I choose to cancel that. For the complete, we have a JavaScript that will just getting back the information. Remember, whenever we choose to interact and pass a payload from the extension to the DM API, we are auto-populating the last event variable. So in that case, what I'm doing using a bit of JavaScript is just stringify that and populating the select seat variable. And I'm just using a simple prompt here in the response AI to generate a confirmation message. Obviously, this is for the demo. In your case, you don't need to stringify this. You want to use this as an object, get the price, get the total, get the seat label, for example, and deal with this, even like populating a database with that. I was talking, and I will quickly end on this one, sorry. But what you want or what you can do here is instead of relying on random selection of seats, I can also choose to use this, for example. So here, to emulate a database, I'm using JSON Bean. And if I make that request, you can see in return, I got a record array. And let's say that those are the seats that have been reserved when I make an API call to my booking system, for example, or backend. So to do this, I just need to put that in there. And because we are generating, or we are getting a record from that, what we can do here, you see we are creating a payload in JavaScript with the number of seats. So that still will be 2 because we're setting that in the beginning of the flow. And the reserved seat will be coming from that API request because we are capturing the response and we're saving that in the reserved seats. So now what I need to do is, instead of using in the action body number of seats, I just simply need to do payload, and that will be replaced by the payload I've just generated in the previous step, the JavaScript step. And in that case, when I choose to run this, and if I go back here and open that again, instead of using the random, let's just change a little thing in the code here. The way we are basically populating the seats here, you can see that's part of the code we are sharing. But for the demo, I was using the generate random reserved seats function. Now I want to use the array we are sending. So I'm just translating that array to the corresponding seats. So if I save that, I can just be sure to run that again. Here we go. Let's restart. We will use the v2, and this time we are actually populating the map based on the seat we are passing from that API response. Those are basically the, you can see, I mean, we're not going to check because I'm a bit on time here, but yeah, trust me, this is exactly what I've said in that array.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. I think everyone was really excited to see the demo live, for sure. So with the last 10 minutes here, we're actually perfect on time, Nico. Thanks so much. Okay. We can transition to Q&A. We have quite a few awesome questions that I can pop up on screen, and then we can tackle them together. Maybe for now, we'll start with this question, which, Daniel, I know you answered a bit in chat.
Yeah, so how can business users build these with less coding experience? And so what we can do is we're going to start putting more of these kind of pre-built examples into the marketplace. So if you go to voiceflow.com/marketplace, today there are like templates and functions, as well as like apps like Flowbridge and Voiceflow. So we're going to start putting extensions on there as well. So you can kind of take a pre-built example and then modify that a bit. One thing that would be really helpful, and maybe you can drop them in Discord if you haven't already, but if there are any ideas of extensions that you actually would want to see, if you can drop them there and let us know like what the use case is, and that'll help us just get some ideas, kind of pre-build some and just put them over there. So we can make that easier. I've also kind of built extensions sometimes using GPT, and so I might create some tutorials around that as well, just showing how to modify extensions, like how they actually work, so that you can kind of take one that's pre-built and with a little bit of research, figure out how to add fields or change things on it.
Great. Okay, figured it out. So we have this question from Phil Habra. Do extensions act only on custom action? My use case, I developed an extension to open the URL from button click without opening another window, but I want the same logic to apply to links shared by the
Nico, that might be best for you.
Yeah, the thing here is most likely you will need to use a custom version of the React Chat for this. Or you can use an extension, but then you will have to trigger that with a custom action. So I'm trying to think of the best way to handle this. Yeah, you can choose to create an extension that will render that LLM message and then handle those links differently than the default behavior from the chat widget itself. or you will have to compile a new version or an updated version of the React chat that will allow you to open those links into a new tab instead of the same window, for example, or the opposite.
Great. We have another question from Alex. This is a great one. What is the best approach for hosting the extension file for your agent if you are developing an agent for a client?
Depending of how you want to maintain those files, if you know that you will have to update the code pretty often, you might want to host that on your end or with an easy access to update those files. If not, that can be, the file can be an asset on the website itself. So on the whenever the client hosts that website, that can be just a file you load from the index, index.html, for example. You don't have to import a file. That can also be a full script. So in my example here, I was always using or referencing an external file, but the full code can be in there instead. If the code itself do not have any security related kind of thing, and it's pretty basic, you can also do it in there. But based on my experience, I will recall having that hosted on your end with an easy access to being updated. Yeah, you can even link, like I've done in the demo, you can link an existing file on a GitHub repo, for example, but I will not recode that for production usage, of course.
Yeah, if there's any other agencies in the chat who have experience doing this or have found something that really worked, feel free to chime in here as well. It's a great question. Great. This one is from Gerald. I think this is in reference to the demo you showed with JetBlue. He asked, how are the prices managed?
Yeah, sorry. So I didn't get the time to talk about what project we were using for the V2. It's actually Seat Chart. That's the project name. The link is available in our code, and this is mainly handled by this. So you have in our code, you will see you have an option part where you can set all those kind of information. Not only that, but also colors and the different rows you want to have, as well as the name for those different type of category, for example. So again, have a look at the code. We have that. It's pretty readable, and we have that documented a bit in our code. So that will give you a better idea on how you can set that. And I'm using a seat chart for a plane booking thing, but you can also think of that for a movie theater or whatever. It doesn't have to be. That's why it was interesting for me to use that seat charts kind of library. It's because it's very flexible, so you can use it for a multiple kind of thing that can even concert, for example, whatever.
Yeah, lots of different use cases for this demo. And yes, we can share everything out after the event as well via email. But great question. All right, next up from JC, what would be the recovery mechanism of the agent if we set the extension as response, but the extension code fails on runtime?
You should have like the try and catch, and in one of those just trigger a fail pass, for example. That might be the easiest way to do so. Just handling those possible error in your code extension code, and if you have a catch, just interact as a fail event.
Sweet. Yeah, JC, if you have any follow-ups, feel free to pop that in the chat. All right, so next we have a great one from Milan. Can extensions modify the state of a React element on the application? It's a cool question. Milan, feel free to also elaborate on your use case. This is really cool.
Yeah, I'm not a React expert, so that might be a question for Ben. But you can surely like change some state, like visual state. I know that assuming that you're talking about state like more in the React way. So I'm not fully sure about this.
Looks like James in the chat mentioned he's managed to render a React component in the component and update its state once it's rendered. So that's really helpful to know. But yeah, Milan, if you want to share more about your use case, we'd love to learn more. And also we can always take this offline too. Great. Hey, let's see. One from Victor. If one wanted to do some light feature detection, a user on a phone or has gyro capability, would that be done in the plugin initialization to pick the list of extensions?
If I get it right, based on the device capability, you want to be able to load specific extension. That can be done, but that will have to be done in your on your end in the init code, not really on the extension side or even in your agent. This is just like on the web page or the web app. Just okay, this device has gyro capability. In that case, instead of loading that code and that extension, just add this one. Just some logic in your JavaScript code, basically.
So Zach, question was that cPicker an extension natively, or was it an iframe of JetBlue's website?
That's a native extension. Yeah, it's you will if you check the code, you will see that basically we are injecting the seed chart library, the seed chart CSS, our code to config the seed chart, and then all the logic, even for the seed selection event and all this. So it's fully native in the extension. We don't use an iframe for that.
Great. Cool. I think that's all the questions in the chat. So yeah, I'm feeling good to wrap up here. What do you think, Daniel?
Yeah, I think this is good. I answered some questions in the general chat as well. So if anyone is wondering, you can't use extensions for like a live chat handoff yet. It is something that we're planning. So right now it's that response and then the effects, like the triggering things on the website, the confetti, etc. You might be able to do something with responses, like have a box in there where you're chatting with someone, but for like a native handoff, not supported yet, but we are working on that.
What we've done so far regarding this is, for example, doing an handoff from a Voiceflow chat widget to a Zendesk, for example, chatbot with a human. We are using an extension to hide the Voiceflow chat widget and show the Zendesk. And this is working pretty much, pretty well.
Great to know. Sweet. Okay, so I think we can wrap up here, but just to recap, we will send an email out to all attendees with all the resources that we shared in chat today. So don't worry, but also check out our YouTube channel, as we will share the recording of this workshop there. And of course, call out to join our community as well, as there's a lot of folks in there that you can connect with building things like on our chat extension. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining into our very first DevLabs. We'll see you for the next one.